Right, I believe, just to double check, we are live, so let's go, shall we?
Let's go, go, go.
All right, so hello and welcome everybody to our panel this afternoon. Let me just double check something. Right, hello and welcome to our panel this afternoon, and hopefully you are all having a wonderful day. Hopefully you're enjoying the con. So what we have for you this afternoon is pretty much a beginner's guide to photography with Ace and Zenfox. Say hello, Zen.
Hello.
So long story short, back in October, we pretty much did this same panel, and everyone seemed to like it. So we thought, why not come back? And hence why it's How to Be Ace at Photography 2.0. For those who haven't seen the panel, the first panel, you're in luck. You get to see this one. I'll try and not waffle on this time, fingers crossed, but we'll see. Shall we proceed?
Let's go.
Right. Okay, I forgot about this bit. I think we might as well briefly talk about who we are, in case people do not know who we are. So I'll go first. Oh god, my lighting is very, very poor. So my name is Ace, or that one Ace. Some of you might have seen me help moderate the PonyCon server. You will see me in Ponytown later and tomorrow. I am known as the Plane Pony, which for some of you who don't really know what that means, long story short, I am a big aviation lover. I love planes. I've loved planes ever since I was a kid. So with that, I primarily do aviation photography at a semi-professional level. Not to say that I'm a professional photographer. I'm not anyone big. Let's just clarify. But I suppose hobby-wise, I kind of try and treat it as a semi-professional level. But with that, I've done it for about 3 years or so almost. So time flies when you try and do this. But yes, and I should mention for some of you who don't know, I am a very big Sunburst fanboy. Big shocker.
Gosh, we will never know.
It is a big shocker. Zen, over to you.
Right, I am Zenfox. As some of you may know, I'm also known as the Train Pony, which itself a explanatory that I like trains and the railway in general. Been into it since I was 5, so many years. I'm a railway photographer and have been since 2006. And I'm also a member of railway staff. I work for a train company here in southeast London as a member of Gateline staff. So I'm the one who is greeting everybody, checking tickets, getting shouted at when things go wrong. And
don't mind me, I'm just booping the camera.
Don't book camera. And I am a Kieran fan, as because everyone likes a Kieran.
Yes. All right. Let us move on to the actual panel. So, I'm trying to keep this short so I don't waffle. But let's just say you're in a situation where you've always wanted to do photography, but maybe you've never got the opportunity to do it, or maybe you've kind of wanted to do photography as a hobby. I would say the first thing, well, personally, I would ask you is what type of photography do you want to do? So bear in mind there are many different types of photography out there. You can pretty much make anything into photography these days. I have listed examples of photography. I think, personally, I think these are probably one of the popular ones. Well, a bit of both, popular and most common, I'd say. But just to kind of get an idea, I have listed some here for all of you peeps out there. So the first one is transport photography. So this is pretty much under what both me and Zen do. So trains, planes, buses, trams, cars, anything transport worthy you can make into a photography as a hobby. Simple, really. I'd probably say out of those Zen, I think probably railway is probably the biggest one. Would you say?
It's the joint biggest because aviation is kind of up there, but also so is bus photography. You'd be surprised.
Yes. Next we have landscape, which is well, I kind of described it as, do you enjoy kind of going into the great outdoors or exploring nature? And I don't know, I suppose you kind of like being out in the fresh air and you kind of want to make it into something. And you can do landscape photography that way. Street photography, another big one. I think, how would you describe this one, Zen, if I may ask?
Uh, all I can say is like if you live in a town or city that's got historic buildings, like many of them have, you can take pictures of that, or just a city or town at night. You know, you
Well,
get
what I was going to say as well, for what you just said, is that like local agriculture, for example, I think I suppose cities with like a lot of historical heritage it indulges with a lot of street photography, I suppose, in a way.
well, and it touches on the next bit is that a lot of cities have graffiti. Although most graffiti is bad, you do get some pretty tasteful ones. I mean, there's a street in Waterloo which is just solely for graffiti, and some of them are really good, and it's worth a look.
Mm. Right, what we got next? We have food photography.
Food.
Food, yes, everyone likes food. I think all of us are a bit of a foodie, to be fair. But or you might have a food blog. Or the one thing I would say about this is that I suppose if you wanted to become a chef, for example, I suppose having like a food blog and doing food photography is actually a really good portfolio of yourself. I think personally, which is quite interesting. But yes, it's quite self-explanatory. You can, if you're a fan of like baking, um, cooking, I don't know what comes under that. You get the idea. You can make that into photography or wildlife. Are you fascinated by local wildlife or want to be up close with nature? So safaris, zoos. What's the word I'm thinking of? Sanctuaries. Fluttershy Sanctuary. There we go.
Or even, or even just in your local park, you got
Yeah.
the squirrels, birds, even a humble pigeon can provide
Yes.
some interesting uh, photograph angles.
Yes. Right. What do we have next? Equipment.
Ah,
So, did you want to talk about this one?
now if you're going to start off in photography, equipment is important, as should be a no-brainer. But what kind of equipment you want depends on what you want to do, how comfortable you feel, and if you're going to take it up as a long-term hobby. Now
Mm-hmm.
we've got a phone camera, which everyone has nowadays. If you don't have a smartphone with a camera, you can get a tablet, which pretty much does the same thing. And simple thing with a phone or tablet is to take out your pocket, snap, back in.
Mm-hmm.
If you want something a bit more upmarket than a phone, then you've got a compact camera. Now, a compact is like a small camera, or if you remember, again, showing my age right here, is that you used to get disposable cameras, which is what you could take on holiday. And after like I think it was 30 photos in the roll of film, it would run out. But yeah, that's essentially what a compact it is, but set obviously with memory cards and that, you don't have to throw the camera away.
Sorry if I'm looking at my phone. I'm just interested in what people are saying. There's a lot of Coaster fans, I think, just having a glance at the chat in the Britannia stage chat.
And you got a DSLR, or SLR as it's sometimes abbreviated to, which is the higher end equipment. And these ones are, if you're taking it up seriously, like semi-professional, even professional. A lot of even the top professionals use SLR. Even in sporting events, you see the press all by the side of, say, and then in a football pitch by goal, they always got SLR cameras.
Indeed.
Good thing with an SLR camera is that you can get accessories for them, such as a number of lenses, depending on what you want to do. You got from macro lenses, which are right at the bottom, like 15mm, to the top end, which is 300mm to, I think it's like 500.
Yeah, because I've been to air shows myself, and sometimes if you have been to air shows, you can like see a lot of people with like massive lenses, like they're about this size, and it's quite remarkable actually. So there are many types of shapes and sizes of lenses.
And of course, with an SLR, you can use a tripod, though you can use a tripod for
Yes.
a compact or even your phone nowadays. But this tripod is handy if you want to do a bit of night photography. You just keep the shot nice and still. But do note, there's some places where you can't take a tripod, and I will touch on that a bit later on. Same
Of
with
course.
a flash gun, which we will touch a bit later on in where and where not to use.
Speaking of that, there is something quite remarkable. So do stay tuned later in the panel. I just thought I'd mention that. Right. Shall we continue?
Yes, rock and roll.
So essentially, all we've really talked about is, what do you want to do and what sort of equipment you do. But more of the bulk of what we're talking about here is to kind of teach people kind of the ifs and don'ts of photography. Now, one thing I will say is that photography is not exactly something you can teach in a classroom. It's more of something you kind of have to learn yourself and experiment. So what we've done here is we've kind of be listing different types of rules of hoof. Funny enough, it's a pun I made myself. I tried. The do's and don'ts of photography. So hopefully this should enlighten a lot of you out there. So the first one is lighting. Now, I think we're all a bit lighting anxious. I mean, I am a bit myself, considering I don't know why there's so much lighting in my room, but nevertheless, in this case, the direction of sunlight is important when you're trying to do photography, no matter what sort of level you're at or how experienced you are. So simply, the correct lighting brings out the best in anything, which is true. You want to make sure that you're not shooting into in direction of the sunlight, or at least facing relatively towards it. One rule to keep in mind is being aware of the direction of the sun, and position yourself opposite it, because basically the point is, at least with here, is that we do have two examples here. Zen, you took that HST, didn't you? On the bottom right, and I took the 747. But essentially the point is, with what we're trying to explain, is that there's quite a lot of, if you're positioned yourself sort of as the middle, you've got you in the middle, the sun, and then you've got, in this case, a train, for example. You can see a lot of the sun's reflection come off whatever it is you're taking, and that's quite key, especially if you want it to be really, really good.
Ideally, you would want the sun, or any light source for that matter, to be behind you, so right behind your shoulder. That is the preferred method is having the sun or light over your shoulder. Now, if you do have to shoot with the light slightly in front of you, as long as long as long as it's on side,
Hmm.
it is still worth it. The one thing you don't want is when the lighting source is too far in front of you or too far behind you.
Yep. It's finding a right balance as well. Right. Oh yes. So we kind of made the point about the sun's position and whatnot, but this is more of a result of poor positioning. Well, not necessarily poor positioning, but it's not the end of the world. But you can kind of see from these examples here, like there's more shadowing visible. There's not any sun reflection. Um, of course, you can brighten images when editing, but ideally you don't exactly want to be spending hours to make a really good photo that's not, in how do I explain this? I suppose if it's that the object is not being reflected from the sun, it can be a bit tricky when you're having to spend hours in Photoshop, for example, trying to brighten it up. You don't ideally want to be doing that,
But
but
but needs must if you
yes,
if you got to shoot with the light in front of you, then needs must. But
yeah.
with the wonders of digital technology, it can be salvaged.
Of course. Right. So that's lighting. Oh yes, Zen, your old friend here.
Ah, my old friend. Now, this helpful website's been out for a few years now, and basically what it does, it shows you where the sun is at any given time of the day. So perfect for any of the outdoor photography. So you know precisely where the sun is at said time you want it, and it covers all the seasons: spring, summer, autumn, winter. It also gives you shadow information, which can come in very handy, especially in the winter time. It is free, although now you have to make an account to actually get onto the website. But as I said, it is free and it's very helpful. It also comes as a phone app. So if you
Hmm.
don't have access to a computer or you just want to keep things on the move, you can download it in the App Store and go from there. I mean,
Yes.
I called it TPE because I can't pronounce that M word.
Photo emphasis.
See, I
or
can't even
something, or something like
I can't
that.
pronounce it, and I'm not going to try. But I call it TPE, not to be confused with the other TPE that's out there.
Yes. Right. What do we have next? Weather. Another big one. So I suppose what I'll talk about the first part of this. So essentially, the point is be precautious because, which I'll explain in a minute. As when you're out traveling, you want to have the weather on your side. So check the weather forecast in advance before going out traveling. So like things like raindrops, for example, can actually stain camera lenses, um, which obviously leads to blurry photos, which you don't want. And then you kind of have to rely on certain camera cleaning equipment to kind of get it off, and it can be a bit tricky sometimes.
My my other point out is that with the weather, as everyone here will know, we're on the British Isles and we can't trust the weather. But if you are caught out in the rain, try to take a picture with the rain behind you. As much as weird as that sounds, you don't want rain blowing into your camera because
No.
no matter what camera type you're using, it not just stains the lens, it can also damage the internals of the camera. So
Yep.
even a 10-second grab photo could do some damage to the inside. Even if you get the raindrops off quickly, it can still cause damage.
Yep. Right. Did you want to talk about what we mean by bolded by cloud quickly?
Oh, my old enemy. Now, bold by cloud. Bold is a termination we use in the railway for when our shot gets blocked. So by another train, by weather, or in this case by cloud. And the type of cloud we really don't like is what we call cotton wool cloud, which is blue sky, loads of white cloud about. We really don't like that because you are constantly watching the cloud move, and you can always bet on it. Is that you can have a clear blue patch, it gets to the time of the object you want to take a photo, and then one cloud will just slowly go over the sun, block your shot, and then slowly move away after it's done.
I guess a good way of thinking about it is it's like, say if you were out having a picnic, it was full on sunshine, you had your picnic blanket, you're in a nice green field, then all of a sudden, we've all been through this, all of a sudden you got this big cloud blocking the sun, so now the sun's going to the cloud, it's cold, well I say cold, but it's a bit chillier, and everything just seems very dull, if that makes sense. I think we can all sort of picture what we mean by that, or what I mean by that. But yeah, it does. Sometimes it depends on what sort of photography you do. I mean, if it's specifically like weather, for example, then there's some minor setbacks, I guess. Although I wouldn't advise going out like the bottom left image here in full snow flurries, because you could pretty much freeze your camera. But yes. What is next? So here, I'll be honest, I was a bit lazy. I didn't exactly want to go through every single one of these slide by slide. So what I've done is I've kind of put these 4 no-brainer examples just to touch on quickly. So which one did you want to talk about, Zen?
I do. Well, we check your equipment is as stated as a no-brainer. Make sure your camera's got battery, your lens is working, you've got your capture cards ready, tripod. Make sure it's all working, because there's been times where I have gone out on a day and I've had little to no charge in my camera, and I've had to turn around, go home. But nowadays I solved that by having 3 batteries in my camera bag. So if my one in my camera dies, I've got 2 more, and I've got the charger with me.
I mean, even with compacts, I mean, you might not have to worry about lenses, but, you know, capture cards, batteries, you're going to need them to get your camera to work. It's simple as.
A lot of compacts run on normal household batteries, so like AA, AAA. So if needed, you can run to a shop and buy a pack of batteries. I have done that in the past, and it's not fun.
I can imagine. Positioning. Yeah, don't hurt yourself, essentially. I think you've got a story to share about this, haven't you, Zen, that you wanted to bring up?
Many stories, but we'll be here all day with the amount of times I've hurt myself. Back in October, I told a story about how I fell off a farmer's fence. But this time around, there's another story where me and a group of friends were at a station just north of London, and in a rush to get in position, I ended up falling down some stairs.
Oh no!
And when I say I fell down, these are station stairs, by the way, and not like a couple of steps. I quite literally fell from the top of the stairs to to the platform end. So I'm talking about a full flight of stairs. I landed. This was the weird thing. I landed. I felt no pain. Got the photo I wanted, and then ended up crying in pain afterwards.
Oh,
I
I
ended up
bet that
with.
was horrible.
I ended up with a twisted ankle. I had to be helped back to. I think it was King's Cross Station where I got picked up. But yeah, don't hurt
Oh
yourself.
no, yeah, especially after that story.
Mind you, this was back in my late teens days where I could run, so I can't do any running at the moment. So got no danger of that happening again.
Yeah. Flash guns. You mentioned this earlier, I believe.
Yes. Now, flash guns are you tend to find them at conventions, weddings, photo shoots. They're just name says on the tin. They're an extra big flash, which
Hmm.
every camera's got a flash. But unlike your traditional flash, a flash gun is only suited to the areas it's meant to be in, like the conventions, weddings, gatherings. Because of the extra light it gives out, it's not suitable for outside of them scenarios.
No.
And just to point out, even general flash is banned in some forms of photography, like in rail photography, flash is actually banned by uh, railway law, which is which is a thing called the conditions of carriage.
Hmm.
And the reason why it is banned is there's a quote in the railway rule book which states that any colour shaken violently means stop. So if you're taking a photograph with flash on or using a flash gun to an oncoming train driver or member of station staff sees that light, they see it as danger ahead.
Mm.
So that's why it is banned on the railway. It's also banned for any roadside photography
Yep.
for the same reason. And also, you don't want to blind anybody.
Yeah, because I think it's like like phone camera flash is one thing, but then you've got a flash gun, which is probably like twice as bad.
It's
So
actually, from how I was reading it, a flash gun is 4 times as powerful as your flash on your phone, and it's twice as powerful as a normal flash.
mm,
So it's perfect for the large gatherings like wedding, conventions, or professional photo shoot.
yeah.
But outside of them three, it's really not.
Mm. Right, and the last thing here is test shots and focus. So what we mean by this is practice shots is pretty much key before grabbing whatever it is you're hunting for. If it's a train or a tram, a car, a bus. Um, I suppose this is more for something that's not stationary, but the same technique can be used if you're photographing something like nature, big mountains, for example. Um, but as we state, if you're hunting for something that is fast moving, it is ideal to take a few practice shots before your main one, because then you kind of get an idea of what is sort of gonna happen. Um, Better late than never, I suppose.
It
It's
comes
also go on.
it comes in very handy when, as you hinted on this, when things approach you very fast, and you've only got
Mm,
like for if I'm photographing a train doing 125 mile an hour, I've got 1 second from the time that no, I've got less than a second actually. From the time the train views up my viewfinder to it passing me, I think
yeah.
I've worked out it's like point half of a second you got So if you don't try
Zoom.
before, you ain't gonna get the shot you want.
Yeah, and it's also a good way of testing out framing and focusing as well, because that can also be a bit of a nuisance sometimes.
As we will,
Um,
as we will
because you
show
obviously. Oh,
in
go
the
on.
as we will show in the next slide.
Oh, you want to go on?
No, I'm just saying that.
Oh, right. Okay.
Like we're framing and focus, as you will see in the next slide, what we mean.
I was just going to say, you obviously don't want to end up with a blurry photo of something, don't you? But yes. Next slide. So this is more of the point we're trying to make here.
Oh, oh my! I'm still not proud of that shot. I'm really not proud of that.
One thing I will say, I'll let you touch up on something, but what I will say is that if you are trying to photograph something that is fast moving, in this case a plane, a train, or anything like that, the best mode on any camera, doesn't matter what camera it is, the best, I can't speak, the best camera mode to use is sports mode, because as you can probably imagine, you know, the at least the shutter speeds when obviously you're trying to click to take photographs is by second instead of like individually clicking, if that makes sense. Um, because in my example, the Air Canada, which is in focus, that's rolling down a runway at very fast speed, and to get that in proper focus is quite tricky. But the mode that I'm using is sports mode, so it's the chances of it not being blurry, I suppose, compared to what the photo you took, Zen. Of I can't remember what tube stop that is actually.
Well, I'm going to touch on that. Photo artwork was taken on my phone at Lambeth North Tube Station back in March 2020. I was there meeting a good friend of ours who came from Yorkshire, and I hope she's listening to this because she's just started out.
We know who you are.
Well, she just started out in photography, and I'm expecting a message from her any minute saying, "Hey," but yeah, we were riding the London Underground because the weather was like today, grim and miserable, and that tube stop, which is now the oldest tube stop, 1972, built.
Credit to anyone who got that, if you had any idea.
Bonus cookie if you get the line. And to our friend, you're not allowed to guess because that's cheating.
Right. What is next? All right, my little treat here. So I'll try and go through this as quickly as I can because I would like to try and do a Q&A. So this is something that I tempted, I suppose, for people to kind of stay tuned. So what I've done here is, so far we've kind of talked about non-pony stuff or non-pony photography. So that's why I thought of the idea of including plushie photography, because I'm pretty sure we all love taking pictures of our plushies wherever we are at conventions or out and about. And I think nowadays, especially now things are resorting to online, I think we sort of take it for granted. I think you said, Zen.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking back at a lot of the pictures I've done with my plushie. A lot of them we can't do in the current situation. So, like the first one, which the top one, which
Top left.
is top left, is something which will never be able to replicate. Not because of the current situation, it's just the object in the background that no longer runs. That's why that one was for. The bottom.
Also, who gave Zen a tank?
Well, the story about that, there's a 10-minute walk from my house. There's a T-34 tank which someone put there as a joke, and it's become sort of a local landmark.
Mm.
And the two on the right were taken Christmas Eve last year because I got a little habit of taking my plushie into work with me just for something completely different. Hence why the bottom right one, he's got a mask on because,
For obvious reasons.
and the top right one, which is my plushie with antlers for some weird reason, what my colleague decided to put on it, actually in the box where I work. But we had little to no customers coming through for a little bit, and we just took pictures of my plushie in the work in the work box.
And of course, it's nothing fancy. It's just you, a camera, and a pony plush. That's all you really need.
Yeah.
Right. So what I'll do, I'll try and go through these as quickly as I can. I'm going to point out a couple of sort of bits of inspiration. So I think Paka Paka on Twitter, I think they are what's the one I'm looking for? I think they're a dedicated plushie photography account. And I find these images in particular very amusing because you've got Tempest driving a tractor or something. I find it very, very, very interesting.
I think it was a bulldozer, if I remember that
Or a
tweet.
bulldozer. But of course, you've got the Kirins, Rarity, Luna, and I think that is Japan PonyCon's mascot, if I remember rightly. But yes, and shout out to a couple of friends who I knew because I was lazy and I kind of wanted to include this. Thankfully, sent me a few pictures of the pony plushies. I suppose the best thing I can say is that you don't exactly have to go outdoors. You can even take a picture. If you have a Derpy plush, for example, you could, you know, have the Derpy plush and a little muffin, take a picture, and you know, I think everyone won't say no to that. So shout out to these folks here for providing this loveliness of pony plushies right here.
Question is, what is Applejack saying?
Buy some apple. Oh wait, no, it's not buy some apples. That's what Apple Bloom says.
I want to know what Applejack is saying over that mic.
Howdy, y'all. We gonna do some apple bucking. I don't know what that was. Please don't judge me. I tried my best. Right. Yeah. Don't quote that either.
Quote it.
Thanks. Right. Editing software. I think.
I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, you shouldn't have. I suppose. Quickly talking about editing software, it seems quite simple, but there are some editing softwares out there where you can pay a fee and obviously you can use it to your advantage. In my case, for at least what I do, I don't exactly need to use something like Photoshop or PaintShop Pro because essentially all I really need to do with my stuff is crop, maybe play around with the like concept, the brightness and the shadowing, and it's done. Add a watermark and it looks perfect. I think for you, Zen, you use what was it you used? I actually can't remember.
I use a branch of Adobe Photoshop, which is Adobe Photo Elements, which does the same sort of job. It brightens up, bit of sharpening. Now, as the ones listed here, I think two of them free, and I know Adobe's Payway. I'm not sure about the other two.
I know Be Funky. The Be Funky is the one I use. It is free, but you can make an account if you wish.
And what I'm half tempted to do is, if we can bring this panel back next time, either if we are allowed to meet in the future or in a future online event, I might dig into more of the editing software. So if you want to take up editing on our little tricks and trades of the editing, maybe that might be something to add.
Mm-hmm.
Because for simple editing, for sharpening brightness, then they're fine. But if you want to get slightly more in depth, that might be something I can look into. And then when we
Yeah.
bring this panel back, then we'll have a whole section on that. If that's something that that you would like to see.
Do let us know. Right. So again, I'll try and go through this quickly. So uploads. Show your creativity is pretty much the whole point of this. So I'm not trying to false advertising. These are both mine and ZenFox's websites. So you can check it out if you wish. But show off your photography. I know, for example, or actually, before I say that, if you don't exactly want to like sign up to make a website, there is another exception. I know my sister, for example, she has a scrapbook, so because she does a lot of Pokemon photography, and what she does, she goes out, takes pictures on a nice sunny day, she prints them out, and she sticks them in a little scrapbook, and I think that's actually really nice. So again, that is another option, which I think is pretty cool. So the website that we use is Zenfolio, and I'm sorry I didn't actually get to doing the exchange rates, but I think as far as I'm aware, it's $60 a year or $10 a month for basic users.
Yeah, that's actually right. It's still that even now. I do believe. I need to double check that I've got, but since I've been a subscriber since 2011. I don't see what it is now, unfortunately. I just see the current plan.
So the next one is SmugMug. Again, I forgot to do the exchange rates, but
SmugMug is just like Zenfolio, and
it's just another platform.
A little bit of history quickly. The reason why Zenfolio and SmugMug are now top tier is that right up to 2011, there was a free photo website called PhotoPic, and you could pay to get extra storage or paid subscription. But unfortunately, they went bust in 2011, and everyone was in a right panic of where they could host their photography, and that's why we ended up with SmugMug and Zenfolio coming more forward.
I'm just having a look at the chat, see what people are saying. I see a lot of Flutterdash. I wonder who did that.
Thinking emoji.
And I think someone pointed out Flickr, which, funny enough, is the next one.
So if you don't want to pay, which obviously if you're starting off, you ain't gonna pay for a site straight away, then Flickr is perfect. It is free. They are bringing a paid subscription thing. I'm not 100% sure on that. They were meant to do it last year, but obviously that didn't happen because of reasons. But two of my closest friends, they use Flickr, so I'm going to ask them what Flickr has told them regarding that, because they're both no, one's a subscriber, one's not.
I think you're right.
I think with the subscription, you just pay for unlimited storage, where if you go for doing it free, it's limited storage. I believe. I need to double check that.
Of course. And the next one that I'm pretty sure all of us use, is social media. Of course, you don't have to make a website, as I say. I mean, if you're on social media, I mean, upload your creativity there, and it's the basics.
You got the big ones like Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Discord if you're in a server, which pretty much everyone is nowadays, given the situation. I mean, a lot of servers I'm part of with friends have dedicated sections where you could post pictures, so you can show off your skills.
The chair's falling down.
Also, you got TikTok as well, but
Oh yes, that one I did forget.
I don't know much about TikTok. Again,
I don't personally, but of course that is another platform where you can, of course, express your creativity. That's a good point, actually. I completely forgot about TikTok. That shows what I know about it. Right, I think, yep, I believe that almost concludes everything. So just to kind of go over um, everything, hopefully everyone has gotten a bit inspirational this afternoon. So we talked about the types of photography that inspires you. Start off small and work your way up if you're getting into the hobby. Camera types, camera equipment, experiment, which what did I mean by that? I suppose kind of experiment with different lens. Like I suppose if you have like different lenses, for example, for a particular camera, um,
oh,
framing and focusing, you need to experiment with.
don't be afraid to experiment, but make
Yeah.
sure that if you're doing photography of objects, make sure you experiment on things which aren't what you've gone for, if that makes sense. Because the worst thing is if you experiment on something you want and it goes wrong.
Mm.
Been there, done that, and it is heartbreaking.
Yeah. Be precautious. So the weather and obviously the sun's position, and upload your creativity because you can. You're allowed, and yeah.
Show it off. Show off
Basically.
what, even if it's just with your phone taking a shot of the sky outside. Show it off.
Yes.
Don't be afraid what people say. Just show it off.
I mean, essentially, people can't really tell you what to do if you're doing a hobby that interests you. So don't be fooled, I suppose. But I think yes. Let's see how much longer we've still got. About I can't maths in my head.
Well, it's
13 minutes or so,
yeah, we've
12
got 13
minutes.
minutes.
So if you do have some questions, I believe the Britannia stage chat questions, I hope that's the right one I've listed, is open. So that's a point. I better actually use my phone to look at the questions because I don't have a dual monitor.
Yeah, and I can't access Discord until after, so please do.
Oh, hello. What have I got pinged? Ugh. Right.
You've got mail.
Yes, I have. Right. So, do we have questions in the Britannia stage chat? Oh, wow, we do. We have quite a lot. I guess I'll go by order just because it's easier. So, I think that's how hyper were you after? Oh, hang on. Sorry. Ignore that. I'm reading the last panel's questions. Ignore that. Please ignore that. Let's see. Okay, here we go. So we don't have a lot of questions. That was just me being a derp. Let's see. So, is it a good idea to make a photo of the sun? Does it destroy cameras? You had a picture of the sun on the weather slide. So, I suppose to answer the first question, is it a good idea to make a photo of the sun? I'm guessing you mean as in like shooting into actual the sun's direction. If I'm not being mistaken.
You can do that because I know a lot of people do sunsets or sunrises.
I do as well. I must admit.
You can shoot into the sun, but a golden rule is not advisable to look through the viewfinder for obvious reasons.
Mm. And also, I must mention, I know I did have a picture in the weather section of the sun and the shine. I actually didn't take that. I kind of, I essentially I took it off the internet so I could make a point. Long story short, but I see what you mean. Does it destroy cameras?
Only if you're old school and use film.
Yeah,
And
that's fair.
because you'd be surprised, there are a lot of people that still use film cameras,
Yep.
and reason it don't destroy them per se. It destroys more the film than the actual camera. But no,
Okie doke.
it wouldn't destroy your camera. It might damage your lens, especially if it's high summer sun and you're pointing it directly into it. But
I wouldn't advise it
I
personally.
wouldn't advise it.
No.
But doing something like a sunrise, sunset, it shouldn't damage your camera. Just as I said, make sure you don't look through the viewfinder.
Because I think I'm going to make this real quick. I will return to the slide momentarily, but I just wanted to point out something just to give you an idea. Whoops. At the bottom left is an example of what Zen was talking about. This was taken by me because last week I was on holiday in Somerset, and the sunsets were absolutely gorgeous. So this is a sort of example of what Zen's talking about, is that you can shoot in the sun's direction, like actually pointing the lens into the sun. But as you say, Zen, I suppose if it's like in the middle of a hot day, you don't really want to do that.
Yeah.
Right. Let me go back to the famous Kieran picture.
The famous Kieran, which doesn't have singing Kieran in that picture.
Oops. Let's see. Question for me. What are your tips for photographing close-up things like toys and plushies? A bit like the question above. See, the interesting thing is that if I am doing close-ups of like plushie photos, for example, I wouldn't always like use a SLR or an actual camera, just simply because I'm more used to like my phone, like just point and shoot sort of way, if that makes sense. Because I don't know, I suppose I'm just used to the framing of a phone camera than I am taking a plushie photo on a SLR camera, for example. But to try and answer your question, tip-wise, what would I say for tips? I suppose just experiment. Experiment with framing, experiment with lighting, and things like that. And close-ups aren't that tricky to get correct, but I see what you're trying to ask there. I hope that kind of answers your question. Hopefully. Right. How do you deal with focusing on things which are moving towards you quickly, such as trains and planes?
Top tip for that: use autofocus if you can.
Oh, that's a point.
Because
that I did not actually touch on. So
with an SLR camera, for example, I'm looking at my one right now, which is a Nikon D7000. It's had it since 2013, and I'm surprised it still works, to be honest. But I have it with autofocus because when you've got something barreling down towards you at very high speed, you've got to be quick. And some of my friends, they use manual focusing, and when it works, it works. But the problem is with manual focusing over auto focusing is that if the light changes, it throws off your manual setting. Whereas with the autofocus, is that how an SLR normally works is if you half press the shutter, it focuses, and then when you fully press the shutter, it takes the picture. So if the light changes before the object you want to object of is in your frame, by half pressing the shutter again, it will refocus to the lighting. So the camera is trying.
What I will say. Oh, what I will say is that you'll know when it's refocusing because you'll hear a little dilling, dilling, dilling little sound. I
Well,
suppose it kind of depends on what camera you use, but in my case, that's the sort of sound it will make.
well, my one will flash in the viewfinder. It will flash red when it's focusing.
Hmm.
So
I
that will
think I think mine does that as well. Right. Is there any more questions? Oh, yes, there is. Do you have any tips for making photos look decent and attractive when the light is grey and dull? That's an interesting one.
It is, and as someone that's got many photos in the dough and damp, is that to make them more stand out is where, depending what camera you got, a lot of cameras now have got some sort of editing equipment on them.
Oh, hello. My phone's
You've
going
got
off.
now,
Yeah. Did you hear that?
yeah.
Oh,
And
whoops.
I just found out a couple of years ago by shooting in a raw format instead of JPEG, I can edit my photos on my camera so I can add more color, which really does stand out. And also, you've got different modes like cloud mode, sun mode, uh, shadow mode. So if you take a
Hmm.
shot, no matter what camera or if you're using a phone or tablet you use, have a look through them. If they've got an editing bit where you can edit your shots in those different modes, do it. If not, then using one of the editing tools will help.
Hmm.
And and all you really need to do for a dough photo is just add a bit more color.
Right. Let's see if I can get at least one more question in. Similar question. I suppose it says, have you got any advice with making a photo with a strong shining object and not lit background? The background on my photos are dark when they actually are, or the object is too bright. Do you have any tips on to reduce the effect? I think they're trying to ask how to increase lighting, I suppose. I hope that I hope I kind of got the idea of the question. Sorry if I don't. Strong
It's
shining.
it sounds like to me that when they're taking a picture of something shiny, that all the light is reflecting off that into the lens, into the camera.
Oh yeah, I see what you're trying to
So
ask.
it's making the background more darker than it is.
Yep.
And the short answer to that is the same as if it's going down. You can go into your camera's editing and you can take off color, take off shadows,
Mm.
and hopefully get the right balance. If not, then you have to go into editing software, and if that don't sort out, then you've got to go in depth into the editing software program, which, as we mentioned earlier, I will look more into. So in a future panel, we can talk more about that because editing photos is going to become a lot more crucial as you go along.
Hmm. Of course, if people want this panel to return again when whatever situation we're in, then we're more than happy to do it, whether it's physically or online.
I think that wraps it up, doesn't it?
Yeah, let's just have a look.
It's 14:14.
Yep. Right. I think we're gonna end it there if that's okay with everybody.
But I will say, if you still have questions, just at myself or Ace, and we would try to help the best we can.
At ZenFox at that one is. But I'm sure everyone will mostly see me later, maybe in Ponytown later. So who knows? But
Yay,
I think
yay,
uh,
PonyCon.
yes, I think that pretty much wraps it up.
It does
So
indeed.
thank you everyone for watching. Hopefully you've learnt something new, and I guess we'll catch you whenever we do.
Yeah, so enjoy the rest of the con, and we shall see you later.
Bye bye.